Hi there. It's Ahmed here with Double GDP. I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the updates for and the designs for the user experience of access and security for Nkwashi. So here, focusing on the start, the home page. This is basically the show ID flow for that user. This is in this case is specifically the resident, but the specific design could potentially be also used for, by contractors or staff members. They could potentially see the same thing. This design is very flexible and um, we could eventually add different, in this format of card, we could have different cards based on the user. So if you're a staff member, maybe you see a set of different cards. So we could just come up with different cards for specific use cases, and each segment of users would see the appropriate card based on the clearance and different things like that. Uh, so the user for security for them would show their ID, right? So if they hit identity here, they see their ID. If they wanted to pull the scanner, in the case of them wanting to check ID of someone else, maybe a security or I don't know, guard, and they want to check that this person is actually working for Nkwashi or is an administrator, there is a possibility that we will give also a resident the possibility of scanning ID, right? Maybe they're granting access for someone that's coming to fix something, right? And they need to check that that person is really who they say they are, and it's not maybe someone pretending to be for security reasons. So this is why this design works in different cases, whether it's security or a resident. All of them, I think, should have the ability to show an ID and scan an ID as well. All right. Anyway, so here, security check flow, and this is specifically for minimum viable product for the MVP version. So in this case, the scanner, in this case of a security agent, they will select the ID scanner. Maybe if we know that you're a security agent, this becomes the default every time you want to identify. You see the ID first as a default selection versus my ID for a resident, because a resident will probably be showing the ID more than the scanning IDs, right? Um, uh, so okay, so in this case, they scan ID, it detects the QR code, and then you get this, again, this is MVP, you get this modal, and the primary call to action is to log the entry, right? In this case, it clears that this person is Thomas Jones, exactly who they say they are. There is a little check mark here to clear them, all, access all clear, log entry. And this is only for the MVP, considering there's only one access point. Right? Eventually we're going to need another design for our ideal state, and I'll get to that a little bit later. And then so here the secondary is to dismiss. So same thing here, but in this case, this is the feedback, the scan feedback for denial. So access denied. I don't know about the exclamation point, but it will say like maybe nothing found or user not found or something, and then you have the little icon also that says in red so that they know that this person doesn't have access. And then the call to action is to call admin or to dismiss. And obviously this is still to be TBD. So we'll determine if the best thing is to actually call admin or maybe even request the ID there. But for MVP version, I think calling admin in this case is appropriate. Okay, so now for the security flow in the ideal state of what we're thinking, and this is obviously flexible. We're not married to this idea yet, um, but it could be something like this, right? So same thing, get the scanner, scan the code, but this time we get a little bit more details, right? So we have the notes here in case you have new notes or there's new notes that you haven't seen there when you log in. I don't know, but for me specifically, one of the poor experiences that I have when I call customer service is that they every time I call having to explain different things when I call single time for certain issues. So I think in this case, kind of calling out the notes or different. I'm imagining different security guards would be logging here at different point eventually for an ideal state. So every time there will be a new note, they should see some sort of something there indicating that hey, there is something here you should check out, right? But not in a way that's completely invasive and is interrupting the main thing that they're here for. So basically, they should see the ID first, but they should also have the ability to know that hey, there's some new notes here. Maybe I can pull this um, uh, to see, if there's some specific notes there. But it shouldn't be a very important thing left there, right? The most important thing in this case is this badge, right? Show that here's their identity, their picture, their name. Obviously, that's important. But then the next thing is like, okay, it's valid. You can clearly see that if you need to check out maybe the entry logs to see the last time that they've been there and just to check out the different times that they logged here. And then a call to action is to log this entry. And in this case, um, you would log the entry if um, you would, I mean, I'm not sure actually if you do need to log the entry in the ideal state. In the ideal state, we should have a system that's smart enough to know that, okay, a user just went through the door and the security guard doesn't have to manually log this entry, right? This is something we have for the MVP, but for an ideal state, I'm not sure we need it. It's there right now, but another thing to be discussed. And then those are just different use cases. So in this case, this is valid. Um, some of the open questions that I have for myself designing this is, um, is this small badge here enough to be a strong indicator and a quick way for them to scan what's going on? Is this loud enough? Should it be a little louder? So in this case, you could clearly see that, okay, it's valid, everything looks great. If it's expired, this is what it would look like. If it's expiring soon, to catch your attention, this is what it would look like. If the person is banned, it could look something like this. Uh, and then, if you needed to see some notes or something like this is where you could go here and refer. So anything in here would be uh, details and thing explaining what's already happening here. Just more detail to support what's happening here. So the main important thing that the user should be able to see and digest quickly is this. And then if they need a little bit more detail, they can dig into like the entry logs or they can check out the notes. Um, so yeah. And in this case, the design aren't complete yet. This is again the home screen, but let's say if in this case we still keep the manual log each entry for the security guard. If they hit log this entry, it will just give them a little notification here. Uh, just the native Android thing, and I will be adding that for next time. Uh, but it will just be confirming that this user's entry was logged successfully. and maybe an undo button or something. So yeah, that's the coming soon. So I think that's about it for the progress so far on designing the access experience for residents and in this case contractors. So in the case of contractors, considering the hypothesis is that they won't have, now most of them won't have access to a smartphone, so it's not something that we should be relying on for this experience. So in their case, if they don't have this, the device and access to the app and things like that, maybe printing, you know, a piece of paper with the QR code and their name, and this becomes the temporary ID that they would then scan. So this flow would still apply, in the exception that, as a contractor, this will be just printed, right? The specific part will be printed, and that's what will be scanned. In other cases, they will just use their devices. In the case of, staff, residents, and future residents, etc. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Thanks.